Are you ready to get your health back but feel overwhelmed by the endless healthcare options? We believe God has called each of us to a specific assignment, and we want to make sure your body, mind, and heart are up for the task. It's time to simplify the process of healing. At Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer simple, effective, easy ways to prioritize your health and gain understanding. No prescription pad needed. I'm Kari, a pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner. I'm so excited to have these conversations around topics with my friend, Jenn.
Hi there, I'm Jenn, and together with our team at Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer an alternative to traditional healthcare, combining our expertise and experience in the medical field with our knowledge and faith to break the cycles of guessing what's wrong. We know the road to healing, feeling good again, can be overwhelming. You can expect honest conversations around the ups and downs of healing. The truth is, there are so many layers to healing. Because we've taken the time to learn where true healing comes from, we've learned how to help other women discover a different way of caring for themselves. Join us every week for new episodes as we discuss topics that are personal and pertinent to your healing journey. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the podcast. We are in our series From Hindrances to Healing. We're so excited to be back today in episode 42 to talk about blood work. Most of people, I think, are familiar with blood work. Most mainstream medicine doctor practices look at blood work. We look at it a little differently. Obviously, we don't diagnose. We just really look for patterns. And nutritionally, our ranges are a little bit tighter than mainstream. And so we really kind of do a deep dive versus just making sure everything's sort of in range. A lot of times we'll look at other markers too that mainstream might not always look at, because we can tell things nutritionally, looking at some things like ceruloplasmin. That's not something that most mainstream healthcare providers will run, but we'll look at how your iron recycling program might be running. Look at your copper levels. Again, not usually run in mainstream. And we go deeper with a lot of things. But Kari, if you want to start to get into kind of just how we look at blood work, why we use it as a tool, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So first off, I have to say, I must be rubbing off on my co-host because she said, "Hey, y'all." And I'm not sad about that. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. I'm turning this northerner into a southerner. Everything's better in the South. So, I'm joking with you. But
this Yankee loves it.
But we're really enjoying going through this series. We wanted to just shed some light on the ways that we work with the clients that we do. And it is very unique. We do use a lot of different modalities to really look at the bigger picture, maybe the more like the 30-foot view. And then we can really determine, okay, how can we help this person feel better? How can we address not only physical, but emotional and spiritual? And how can we do that in like the most effective way without leaving anything out? So that's kind of what we're going through in this series. And in these next two episodes, we're going to talk more about testing. And testing is part of just a way to get a really good feel about what is going on, but it's not the only thing we use, obviously. But it does help us to see with blood work, and then we're going to talk about hair tests in the next episode, just exactly what's going on beneath the surface. And we chose blood work, just in thinking about all the tests that are available now in more the like integrative, holistic, functional medicine world. There are so many tests you can use. And it's not that we're necessarily opposed to those tests. There are a lot of other tests that we run later with clients because when we can kind of assess what's going on, work on some foundational things, and then do other tests, it seems to work better that way rather than doing a ton of tests up front. Not only is it expensive, but I don't really think it's needed because we can get so much information from blood work and hair tests alone. And so that's why we chose these two tests to do up front. And so, of course, in this episode, we're going to talk more so about blood work, but stick around if you're interested in the hair test too. We're going to be back in the next episode talking more about that in depth. But Blood work is something that we're all familiar with. I mean, you get it when you go to the doctor often. And so I get the question a lot, like, how is this different than when I get like, maybe I don't hear that question, but it's a question within a question because, I hear a lot, my blood work looks fine. They've already done blood work. I don't want to do blood work again, and I know it's frustrating, right? We go to the doctor, we don't feel good. They're like, well, let's run some blood work. And then everything comes back fine. But people are like, I
Fine.
don't feel good.
Fine.
Yeah. Like
Right.
fine in quotation marks, like, right. And so how is this different than that? I think that's where I'd like to start because I think we've all probably been there or will be there. And so,
And I just want, can I say one thing?
Ah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
no,
I just want to say that don't get frustrated if you do get blood work back and it says that it's fine, quote unquote. First of all, as Kari said, we're looking at it a little bit differently, but also blood work is the last place things will show up because the body does everything it can to keep the blood homeostatic. That means to keep it within those really tight ranges. And so if it's not showing up in blood work, but you're, walking into an office with a ton of symptoms, that's why it's just one tool, besides, our in-depth history to just give us, like she said, the 30,000 bird's eye view. Sorry about that.
no, you're fine. Yeah. I mean, that is true. I mean, your body is so amazing that it does try to keep things, like the blood homeostatic and the organs working. Like it goes into survival mode basically whenever it feels these threats. And so, yes, on typical blood work that your doctor may be looking at, which does have larger ranges, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. A lot of times things won't be out of range until it has been going on for a while. Things are really kind of getting to more of that. What's the word I'm looking at?
Dysfunctional.
Dysfunctional. Yes.
It's not subclinical.
Yeah, exactly. And also, we have to think about what doctors are trained to look at. Conventional medicine, they are trained to prescribe and to diagnose. And that's not what we're doing. We're more on the prevention side. We want to help catch things before they get there. And that's not what we're trained in anyway. But I think that, of course, if you're listening to this podcast, you do want to be more on the preventative side, first of all, and oftentimes a lot of these things, it's going to be a while before you're actually diagnosable or prescribed something, and so you have to kind of just think about it. It's not necessarily their fault that they're not looking at it differently. That's how they were trained, But this is how we're trained. So if you want a different perspective, then you have to go to somebody that's trained differently. And while conventional medicine is great for when you need it for that, right?
Absolutely.
It's not great when you want to be more preventative and you don't necessarily want to be prescribed just a lot of medication, So I think that it's good to kind of set that precedence as we talk about blood work, especially.
No doubt. I think it's really a perspective of, disease versus health. They're taught a disease perspective. They are not taught a health perspective, right? They don't teach from a health perspective. They teach from a disease perspective. And that's the main difference.
Yeah. And so when you're thinking about blood work, they're looking at medical ranges and we're more so looking at optimal ranges. And just speaking about, blood work is, like Jenn said, a great way to assess more of a overall bigger picture, maybe a 30-foot view picture. And to do that, you need a different maybe markers than you have been getting from your doctor, first of all, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, what those might be. But also you need to look at maybe tighter ranges because in conventional medicine and the medical ranges, they are taking the average population and getting those ranges, which the average population now is very sick. And so their ranges are going to be bigger, right? They're going to be larger. And so we take those and kind of shrink them, make them more of the optimal ranges that maybe were 30, 40, 50 years ago even. And that really helps us to see patterns more of things that might be off, might be going in the direction of, okay, this might need more support. And again, we're not diagnosing here. We're looking for patterns for underlying issues that can really support and be more preventative in your health. So, that is, I think, the biggest difference as far as looking at it from different perspectives and different ranges, and really trying to address things before they get more of just like full blown type of issues. I think that's important. And so I think that just looking at blood work that is read wrong really does not give you any clear direction. And so we just have to ask better questions. It's not that the test is wrong. It's not that blood work isn't helpful. It's just that we have to look at it differently and ask different questions and really be trained in this. So we have taken a blood chemistry course to be able to read markers and look for patterns of some issues that might be going on, and to help, support organs better, support mineral balance, support these things so that your body can perform optimally. So that's the whole point, right? We're not looking to put band-aids on things. We really want to help support your body to do what it's already trying to do. I think that's a big difference.
I think too, you have to be careful because sometimes blood work will look okay initially. And then once you start the healing process, it looks a little bit different. It might look worse. It doesn't always look better, which is not a bad thing. And Kari, I don't know if you're going to talk about this. Sorry if I'm stealing your thunder, but I'm just thinking about like biofilms, for instance.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. You go ahead.
Okay. So, biofilms are something that basically protect bugs from any sort of, immune system, trying to attack it, right? So it's basically a protective mechanism against, bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungus. And so what we'll see is that sometimes the blood work looks normal, but we do some biofilm work, and then all of a sudden, their CBC with diff looks much different once we've started breaking those biofilms down, which is the good things, which means now that the immune system has access to those bugs when it did not before.
Yeah, that definitely. And I think that's something that maybe can be discouraging. It's like, wow, my blood work looked a lot better than I started doing some of this work, and now it doesn't look as good. Right. But I think it's also important to remember we're not looking for perfect blood work. We're just looking to help support your body in doing what it was already trying to do, fill in some of these gaps and deficiencies, and just really support the organs and cells to work properly. And nobody's blood work is perfect. But again, I think it's important to take a step back, and especially if maybe it's really discouraging to see your blood work look worse whenever you are doing some of this work. But I'm glad you mentioned that, Jenn. It's not necessarily that it looks worse. It's that you have to peel back some of these layers, and that is going to affect your blood work. But over time, it should, normalize with supporting your body and these processes.
Kari, do you want to talk a little bit about a thyroid panel? Because I think it's really important, because mainstream medicine only talks about TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, which is actually a pituitary hormone, by the way. It is not produced by the thyroid. Do you want to talk a little about that? Because that's really important, and we see that very often.
Yes, that was the thing I was going into next. So thank you.
Great.
So this is one of the things that we see a lot, is that, we'll start working with a client, and, we're just, maybe he or she has blood work that is pretty current. And so that, they send it to us, and they don't have nearly the markers that we're looking for. And then we just order the rest. But one of those things is a thyroid panel. And even if somebody is actually on thyroid medication, knows they have Hashimoto's, they have went to their doctor and they've told them that, they're still not doing a full thyroid panel. And we're like, what? Right. It doesn't make sense, right? Right. And so, TSH is not anywhere near a full thyroid panel. It's not even really a thyroid hormone, like Jenn said. And so we'll see some people that are on medication just based on their TSH, which doesn't even make sense, right? It just, I'm not sure, like, help me understand.
Yeah. But or they're not even looking at antibodies. I can't tell you how many times I've sent clients back to their doctors and said, can you please ask them to do a TPO or a thyroid globulin, which are, the antibodies. And sure enough, they come back positive, and the doctor didn't even think to look. And again, listen, we are not saying mainstream is bad by any stretch of the imagination. We're just saying they're trained a little bit differently.
Yeah. Definitely. And so this is one thing that you could ask for, right? And when you say, like, I want a full thyroid panel, and then give them the markers that you want, because sometimes in their mind, a full thyroid panel is literally just TSH, but that doesn't tell us, right? why your thyroid might be off. Even if your TSH is off, other thyroid markers may or may not be off. You really don't know. And so I think it's important to understand that you need this plus other markers that would show why your what might be stressing out your thyroid or what might be going on underneath the surface that would be influencing it. So that's what we mean by looking at the bigger picture and getting a full blood work panel to really see where's the breakdown, how can we support the body in, of course, like optimal, in this case, optimal thyroid function.
Right. And rarely do they look at things like reverse T3, right? Reverse T3 is actually the opposite of T3. It literally puts the brakes on, the thyroid receptor. And it will be high if cortisol, which is the stress hormone, is high. And a lot of times they won't look at that. And remember, the thyroid is intimately related to the stress response, adrenals, what they call the HPA axis, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. And so looking at something as simple as that to see if it's high is super important. We also want the full thyroid panel because we want to know, are you able to convert your thyroid hormone? Right. Even if you're on medication, which is T4, that's the inactive form of thyroid hormone, and it needs to be converted into T3, which is the active form. That takes selenium, that takes magnesium, that takes zinc, that takes a bunch of minerals and nutrients specific to make that conversion. So it's really important, even if you're on medication, we want to see those T3, T4 numbers to make sure your body, one, has the nutrients to make that conversion. And two, if it's not, then we know that we need to look further and see which of those nutrients that might need to be supplemented.
And then also the liver, it takes the liver to convert that as well. And so many livers are overburdened. So it's just looking more at the bigger picture to see how can we support, like where's the breakdown here? Why isn't this working optimally? And just to give the body nutrients and support to help it function optimally. And so if you are curious about the different markers that we would recommend and that we do run with clients, we've actually created a free download that you can access. We're going to put that in the show notes of exactly what we recommend for clients that you can take to your doctor and ask for, and hopefully be able to get a better picture. We've also gone into a little bit more detail about that in a YouTube video that we made that we'll also link below, just to kind of give you more information on what that could look like and a little bit about the markers and why we use those.
Yes. Thanks, Kari. I think this is a really important subject. I think it's something that's really misunderstood for a lot of people. And a lot of people get frustrated because their doctors tell them their labs look normal when they really might not be normal. They might not be looking deep enough.
Right. Yeah. So we hope this sheds some light on you, give you maybe a different perspective, and helps you to just decide like what's best for you. Do you want to continue down that conventional route, or do you need some help looking at things from a different perspective if you're still feeling not that great and your labs look fine? So check out that YouTube video, get our free download, and hopefully that will help you in your journey. And stick around, though. We're going to be back next week talking about the HTMA, which is another really important test that we run with all of our clients. So see you back on that next episode. Bye for now.
If this episode has served you in any way, drop a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd love it if you'd share any aha moments or takeaways on Instagram and tag us at Cornerstone Integrative Healing.
And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do so. We want to continue to walk this journey with you. Until next time, friends, know that we're praying for you.